Hi, my name is Justin Odisho, and in this video editing tutorial, I'm going to show you to create this photo burst slideshow transition effect in Adobe Premiere Pro. I'm going to begin by dragging my first video clip onto the timeline. This will just create a new sequence in whatever size the video clip was, or you can always go to File, New Sequence, and create a new sequence in whatever size you need. But once I have my first clip on there, or wherever you are in your project, then I want to transition from this clip into another using a photo slideshow burst. It can be hard to tell if you're using photos from the same set of a scene, which ones are the photos and which are the videos. So if you ever switch to list view, you can use the sort by type or label color to quickly separate all your pictures from your videos. And you have many different sorting options and information about your clips here. So I have 4 photos in this project media panel, and I'm going to hold shift and just drag them all onto the timeline at once. Now you see by default, Premiere just chooses a 5-second default duration if it's a photo, and these are these pink clips here by default. If you ever go to Premiere Pro Preferences and go to Timeline, you can actually change the still image default duration from 5 seconds to however many seconds or frames you want. So let's say we want this entire transition to only last like 1 second. We can change it in the preferences, but I'll leave it as is. This is more useful if you're creating longer slideshows and working with tons of photos. For this sort of handcrafted transition, we can just quickly do it with the arrow keys and cut tools. You can also check in the label menu what the default label colors are. So you can see a still photo, default color, lavender, a video, violet. If you want, you can make them your own, but I just leave it as default not to confuse myself. That's what I'm used to. But let's cut down these clips from 5 seconds down to something more reasonable. Since I only have a few here, I'm just going to kind of stack them on top of each other. Let's say we have 24 frames a second here. Then if I just use my arrow keys, I can press up and down to go directly to in between a cut. And remember, that's based on whatever track is targeted. So if you click V1, V2, it'll highlight that track and consider it in your ups and downs. And I'm going to zoom in so you can see what I'm working with here. I'll just make the timeline bigger. And if I just use my arrow keys, I can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 frames. I can just grab my cut tool with pressing C on the keyboard. If I hold shift and click, it'll cut through all of those clips at once. I can press V to get back to my selection tool, or just click it here in the toolbar and then highlight all of those and delete them, and then stack everything back in a sequence. So now we've created a quicker burst than our 5 seconds each thing, which would be too long. And if I now bring another clip next to this, we've essentially created this slideshow transition, but we're not quite done yet. It's still a little rough around the edges. So this is what it looks like so far. But there's a few other things to take into account, like the size of the photos is usually different than the size of a video clip sequence. For example, if you took a vertical photo, we end up with these black bars on the side. So if you ever highlight the clip and go to the Effect Controls panel, here you can adjust the scale and the position of the photo. So one technique you can do is simply scale up if you're working with something like that. Or you can just embrace it, scale all the way down. You can even go with more of like a collage type of look. Maybe pop one in this corner, and then for each photo, you could maybe like have it coming through a different side or angle of the screen. If you want to get creative with it, make it feel more like a collage. But in my case, I am just going to scale them up. I want kind of a full bodied look, and I don't want to deal with those black bars. Just my preference for this one. But one thing I can do though is adjust the X and Y position. If the photo does have more pixels, I can at least go through and place each photo where I think it looks best in the rectangular video frame. And also another thing to remember is the order of these. So maybe they tell a story. I want to make sure that I place them 1, 2, 3, 4 in the right order, or however many in the right order. Now, although it still works just like this, some other tips that you can do is to add quick little flash transitions in between. So if I ever go to the video transitions folder in the effects panel and go to the dissolve section, there's a few that we can use. One I can use is additive dissolve. This will be like a quick, bright dissolve that blends the two in. But just like the photos have a default length, so do the transitions. And I'm also going to want to grab that little piece of tape that represents the transition. And in the effects control panel, you can kind of squeeze that in a lot. So really the same way the photos are happening quickly, I want these, if I do have a little flash, I want that to happen quickly. And you can even push it more in between. And when I play that, it happens more like a quick little flash. You could even do a dip to white instead. That's just like a pure flash. That can be a fun way to flash in or out of this. And you could do it in between every single photo, but in this case, I'm just going to do it only when it flashes from the slideshow back to the video clips. When you see these lines here, these dashed lines, that just means that since this is the very beginning or very end of a video clip and we pushed it past the edge to the left, it's just going to simply hold that first frame until the video clip actually starts. So don't worry too much about that. If it looks like an error, it just means that you're at the start or end of the clip, so you're just extending the first or last frame out if you want to. And another thing you can even do is, I'll just show you on one photo, for example. When you have one photo and it's just a still photo playing, when you did have a video playing the whole time, it can be kind of jarring to just go to one photo. There's no motion in this at all. One idea you can do is to add some noise. This photo already has some noise to it naturally, but you can add some noise to your photo that is animated. So if you go to the noise and grain section of your video effects folder and add noise, you can increase the amount of noise. You can make it black and white noise or color noise. And I would recommend being really subtle here. I'm just kind of showing you, for example, really, don't do anything too crazy, 10%, maybe less, 5%. But when you press play, that noise is animated. It's probably hard to see on the YouTube video just because compression and whatnot. But that noise is randomly generated and animated. It can add some motion to your photo and it changes it from just being a still photo to looking more like film. Another idea is you can add film grains or different sort of grain samples. These are some Super 8 scans that I personally sell on my own website. And you can add something like this and just put it on a blending mode. So if I just increase the contrast a lot, you can pull out those white speckles. And this is animated as well. It gives you all those dust and scratches. So if I put something like this on a blending mode like screen, that'll do the same kind of idea and give me some kind of motion and flicker going on my still photo to make it seem like it has a little bit more life to it. And that's just a tip on incorporating photos into your videos in general with more life, is to add some sort of texture and grain. So whether you want to just use some built-in effects and make your own kind of animation, or if you want to check out some of these sort of resources like the actual Super 8 film scans that you can apply on blending modes, I have those available on justinodisho.com/shop, including presets, or you can try to make them your own or go whatever route you want. And you can see what that looks like over this whole slideshow. And another thing is the motion. So one trick you can do is grab all of your photos, right click and nest them. This will nest them into their own sequence. So now they're all like one clip. And I can go to the beginning of this nested sequence. I can add a keyframe on the scale or position, and I can go to the end of the sequence and I can kind of make sure that it's scaled up a little bit during that. So we get this slight zoom happening as it zooms through the photos. That can help add some motion to things as well. One thing to note, if you do nest your sequence, you'll notice you might lose those transitions. So you want to add the transitions after you nest and then bring them in to size. So that should be more of a last step. Another thing you could even do if you don't have photos is you could just go to different points of your videos or different video clips and press this take screenshot or export frame button, and that'll just take a still frame from your video clip. So you could grab a collection of different still frames. Those will end up in your project media panel, and you can use those instead if in place of photos if you still want the same sort of idea to work with. So here's a still frame that I just took, and I can work with that in the same way as I've been working with photos. But all those extra finishing touches aside, that's the basics of creating this really useful photo and video transition effect in Premiere Pro or whatever video editing program you're working with. My name is Justin Odisho. Thank you so much for watching. You can check out resources on justinodisho.com/shop and subscribe here on YouTube to stay tuned for all of my new videos. I have hundreds and hundreds of more tutorials in the playlist as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.